Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist, and I just saw Sleepy Joe asking for a assault weapon ban, which, well, it was expected. We were talking about this many times before with my friend Matt Bracken during the weekends, our live streams. This is a subject we've talked about many times, and of course it finally happened. Now, one of the few interesting things Sleepy Joe there said, I'm using this Sleepy Joe because the man seemed to be falling asleep. It's either that, which we're going to be taking in more of a light-hearted context, or he's seriously degenerated in a neurological aspect because he could barely keep his eyes open and keep a line of thought. So yeah, it's either sleepy or seriously ill Joe there going on. But he was bringing up a point that he was actually right. He has passed assault weapon ban before. He has banned a restriction on magazine capacity before. These are things that have happened before in the United States. Therefore, they can happen again, and they can be even worse than before. So don't think this is not going to be happening. He did it before. Now as a president, he's even more capable of doing that, especially with the control they have over the entire government, the mainstream media. I mean, this is something that is very, very likely to happen, so as to put it lightly. A couple things that you probably already know. When they're asking about an assault weapon ban, assault weapons are already heavily restricted in the United States and most of the world as well. An assault weapon is a fully automatic firearm. When you pull the trigger, you keep it pulled, it just keeps on firing automatically. That will be very difficult or even downright impossible to get depending on the country in which you are. Usually it's something that is heavily restricted. In the United States, you just cannot walk into a gun store and buy an assault weapon. That's simply not a thing. You need get your paperwork through, your stamp. It's a whole big deal. They're also super expensive. You haven't seen a real assault weapon used in any mass shooting that I could think of. I cannot think of a single one in which people were killed in large numbers where an assault weapon was actually used. It simply does not happen because it's almost impossible to get those, and they're super expensive. It's like crazy expensive. So what they're asking for is not something realistic. What they want to ban is semi-automatic firearms, which it is crazy, right? It is something that will not make much of a big change. The kind of gun they're clearly going after is the AR type rifle, the AR platform. In all honestly, most crimes are committed with handguns. Something like this, something that's very compact, has a decent magazine capacity, and these are the magazines. It used to be, for you younger folks, you may not remember this, but I actually have a few magazines of the assault weapon era where it just says 10 round only. It's limited to 10 rounds, and if it has more than that, it just says law enforcement only. So that used to be a thing in the United States. It may well be again. You may see these dark times again. They're not going to be preventing anything. They're not going to be preventing any kind of violence because it has nothing to do with the problem of people being mentally ill or violent against one another. That's something completely unrelated. And here is where some of the anti-gun crowd will go, not so much. You know what, guys? The problem I find is that many times folks don't know enough just to make a strong argument. You've heard so many times about, well, why is it that we have this problem and over there they don't have it? This other country hasn't got nearly as bad numbers in terms of, well, what is it that is legal over there? Because as far as I know, in pretty much all of the civilized world, except of a very few specific cases, if you're thinking of how is it that Europe is safer, if you want to look at some of the safer parts of Europe, some of the safer part of Europe, if you're talking about Switzerland, if you're talking about Sweden, if you're talking about any developed nation where you could look at the numbers and say, okay, honestly, they don't have that much of a problem with the people killing one another with guns. In all of those cases, people have the right to have guns like these or have ARs and pretty much any kind of firearm you could think of. The lie a lot of folks, and maybe a lot of you guys have been fed is, well, only in America can we have guns. Glocks were not originally made in America. These were originally made in Austria. Gaston Glock was not American, okay? AR-15s, AR platforms, they're made in Italy, in Germany, they're made all over the place. They're made in pretty much, I can think of every single country I know of in Europe makes some kind of AR platform, some kind of AR rifle. So this idea that countries that don't have the same kind of problem or numbers that are as bad as in the United States don't have guns, that's simply not true. In fact, the gun that I have over there, that shotgun that you see, that would require the same kind of paperwork that you would need for a fully automatic rifle in the United States. And in most countries that I know of, it's perfectly normal to get just like any other firearm, just with $300. It is not true, this idea that just banning certain firearms, you're going to be making a country safer. Even banning everything doesn't make a country safer. If you want to ban every single gun you could possibly get, look at Mexico. By God, it's just across the border. Look at Mexico. Nothing in terms of guns is legal in Mexico. And let me know what you think of how safe Mexico is. There's only one gun store, listen to this, there's only one gun store where a law-abiding Mexican can get himself a firearm, which is going to be something like a 12-gauge shotgun, nothing very tactical, just a basic shotgun. And in terms of handguns, the only thing you can get in Mexico, get this, is a 380 ACP, not even a 9mm. So a 380 is as best as you can get in Mexico, and only one gun store in the entire country. Do you have any idea of the kind of gun violence going on in Mexico? You have cartels fighting one another with machine guns mounted, actual real anti-aircraft belt-fed machine guns, or cannons, bazookas. They have every possible kind of weapon, not just small arms, just weapons in general, warfare kind of weapons you could possibly think of. They have all the AKs, all the AR, all the magazines. They have every single damn gun you could possibly think of, and then more, in a country where it's strictly forbidden for law-abiding citizens to have anything more than a 380 pistol. And no one practically has one. That does not stop the kind of violence that you see in Mexico. I mean, in Brazil it was the exact same thing until Bolsonaro came along and he started making laws a little bit more friendlier for law-abiding citizens, which is great. But until not that long ago, it was practically forbidden to have any kind of firearm in Brazil. And it was still one of the more dangerous places in the world. Right now in Venezuela, I mean, I could go on all day, but there's no example anywhere ever where it shows any relationship between forbidding having a gun ban and seeing a decline in the kind of violence you see in society. People can kill each other any way they want. People can get any kind of weapon they want eventually if they want it bad enough. It's usually the crappy shithole places that ban firearms for civilians. If you go to some of the more civilized countries in the planet where you have any kind of freedom, sure, if you're going to be looking at, what is it, like Japan, China, sure. Now, is that what you consider to be a freedom-loving country, or something where you would want to be imitating in kind of basic human rights? Of course not. Right? That's not the example. The only place, honestly, the only place that you could think of where, and this may be one of the reasons why sometimes people are so confused as to what is legal in our parts of the world, especially in regards to Europe, is England. In UK, you have a type of culture that is very restrictive regarding some of those. You cannot have guns, you cannot have a damn pocket knife, you cannot even have pepper spray for defending yourself from a rapist if you're a woman. That's just forbidden. But it's the only place in all of Europe where that's going on. Then I cannot think of a single other country that has that same kind of restriction for law-abiding people. You have all the, and you can get them, in France, what is it, like 16-year-olds? If you're practicing, if you're competing, you can get yourself a handgun when you're 16 years old, 18 years old, right? In many parts of the United States, you cannot do that. So this idea that guns are banned in any other, in all other civilized parts of the world, guns are banned, that is not true. You will become a shithole if that goes through. If they go through with that kind, and combined with everything else, with all of the woke nonsense that they're pushing forward and all the restrictions on basic liberties like opening a store and running a business, that is not happening anywhere else that I can think of. Well, yeah, again, maybe in some specific places, but in most other countries that I can think of, if you do things, you may be required to wear a mask, you may be required to have some limit in the amount of people that you have all bunched up in a small room. But other than that, other than just common sense stuff, you're allowed to have your business and go about as best as you can. Sure, there's been periods in which things were very bad in pretty much all countries where extreme measures were taken. But this madness that you're seeing right now in the United States, that is not normal. That is not happening in the rest of the civilized world, and you should not consider it so. So don't let yourself be fooled by Sleepy Joe. Sleepy Joe is just a puppet, guys. Here, he's just someone is pulling the strings. He's barely there at all. At least that's what I get from what I'm seeing. The man is heavily deteriorated in the last few weeks, even last few months. It's just very bad. So they may end up doing this. They may end up pushing this through, and they may eventually end up passing it as well. That's concerning. That is no joke, because it's the cascade effect keeps going on. They're not going to be stopping with that. And the worse it gets, think of Venezuela, where they banned guns for law-abiding citizens while at the same time releasing criminals. And you have the violent thugs, the BLMs, the rioters, the looters, the arsonists. Those are the ones in control right now. Those are the ones that walk free after torching an entire city. That's okay. They're not only are they not going to be going to jail, they are going to be involved in politics and have high-ranking positions within it. They're the ones that are going to be having all the weapons. They're the ones that are going to be having all the power while taking and stripping your Second Amendment rights. All right? So don't be fooled by it. Know the truth. When you're being told that this is how it's done elsewhere, no, it's not. Only in shithole places does that happen, and it doesn't work. And if you have any doubt, look at all of these countries where guns are pretty much impossible to obtain, and the kind of rights you have there, and the kind of safety that you have in places like Mexico, where Mexico is the most accurate and the more the perfect example as of how gun control is a complete failure, utter nonsense. It just doesn't work in any shape or form. Folks, be prepared for what's coming, because, I've been doing this for a long time, 10 years now, but this is it. This is the time. You're kind of running out of time to prepare. If you haven't done many things, it's becoming increasingly difficult. If you haven't got these already, they're more expensive than ever. Same with the ammunition, same with a lot of stuff. But prepare as best as you can. You still have some time. I always recommend, of course, my book, where I put as much knowledge as I can, especially in street survival skills. And a lot of the things you're seeing are strongly related and very similar to stuff you see from an economic collapse, like the stuff I saw in Argentina. So the Modern Survival Manual, surviving the economic collapse as well, and especially in terms of the economy aspect, which I'm going to be covering in a separate video. But I just want to talk about this because I just saw the news and I was, man, yeah, it's on. It's happening. They're not going to be letting it go. So be prepared. See you in the next video. Have an awesome day. Take care.